Welcome to Green Building Matters, the podcast that matters for green building professionals. Learn insight in green buildings as we interview today's experts in LEED and WELL. We'll learn from their career paths, war stories, and all things green, because green building matters. And now our host, and yes, he has every LEED and WELL credential. Here's Charlie Cicchetti.
Be sure to check out the Green Building Matters community, where you can have unlimited exam prep for any of the professional credential exams you're tackling next, as well as putting your continuing education on autopilot, saving time with GBS reporting your hours on your behalf. Check it out, gbes.com/join. Now, enjoy this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Cicchetti. And today I've got William Paddock. He's the director at WAP Sustainability. Can't wait to learn more about his green building journey. And I'm sure we'll talk materials because that's somewhere he is also a specialist. William, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you were recommended by one of our previous guests, Holly, and she said you were the guy when it came to this, and this movement. And I said, well, we gotta talk. So let's start with that origin story, though. William, where'd you grow up and where'd you go to school?
Yeah, sounds good. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, in a little suburb of Dayton called Centerville, and then left the Midwest and studied environmental science at the University of Alabama, and then picked up an MBA in sustainability at Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee. They've got an Institute for Sustainable Practice, and was one of their first graduates and students in that program, and now I adjunct over there. But that's my education background.
No, we're seeing more and more of the universities come out with these sustainability programs. Sounds like you were there on the inaugural class. So before we move on, can you tell us a little more about that and what came out of that program? And it's probably gaining some momentum now. Yeah,
it's pretty unbelievable, the explosion of the sustainability degree in the academic scene. Doing an MBA in sustainability, I thought it was sort of interesting. I had a little bit of sustainability experience prior to enrolling in the MBA program, but it was a fascinating space to sort of test talking about sustainability in a business setting and sort of use, the sustainability business operating philosophy in a business, B school setting, and get challenged on a lot of critical thoughts and thinkings when it comes to sustainability. So I think it's a really nice, safe grounds for sustainability professionals to sharpen their knives and their tools for preparing themselves for embarking on what's a really challenging role as being a sustainability professional in a corporation.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, we're definitely going to talk some corporate sustainability because, the world I mostly live in is real estate, whether it's new buildings or existing buildings or tenant improvements. And how can we make sure we're having a, eco-friendly project and a healthy building, but get on down that track a little bit towards corporate sustainability. But where did you first become a little more sustainability minded? I even see you work for the EPA for a little while in there, but did you have an aha moment? Hey, I'm going to get into sustainability. I'm going to make a career out of that.
Yeah, the moment I talk about is actually a high school science fair project. I wasn't doing all too well in physics class and had the opportunity to do some extra credit if I did a science fair project. The science fair project was on kind of an unmapped, unknown water body, which this was 2000. So I was sort of shocked that we still had aquatic resources in the United States that both like a state EPA and the federal EPA didn't know existed. And so I realized that my false sense of environmental protection that I thought the government had for me wasn't really exactly what I thought it was. And so that was pretty alarming. And then the science fair project sort of precipitated, and I got to go to this thing called the International Science and Engineering Fair, which was sponsored by Intel, and they gave out scholarships like candy at this thing. And I saw the interest that business had in environmental science and the sciences as a whole. And I was like, oh my gosh, science isn't just this, subject that most people hate. There's actually real careers and real business interest in this thing.
And that you had an aha moment there. I love those science projects. I can remember some myself. And so walk us through that kind of career journey. So, a little time at the EPA and then started getting into corporate and even spent some time at M&M Mars. So just tell us about a couple of companies you have worked with, and then we'll talk more about your company today.
So environmental science as an undergraduate degree is pretty interdisciplinary. I mean, it's a lot of, natural resources, education. So a lot of the, regulatory environmental programs are sort of taught. A lot of my experience and internships and jobs like with the EPA were sort of around things that I figured out that's not really what I want to be doing. It wasn't the approach of environmental science that was really exciting to me. I'd always had this interest in business and environment from this, science fair experience, but finding a job in that was kind of tough. And I remember there was a GE Eco Imagination commercial, and this is probably like 2004, 2005, but it was an elephant dancing through the rainforest with a cast of forest friends singing, Frank Sinatra's Dancing in the Rain. Then at the end, the caption, GE's Eco Imagination Program, reinventing the way we do things, or some tagline like that. And I remember I was like, that's it. Whatever that is, that whole thing is like what I want to be doing. Like here, this huge company that, I've always been told, always heard about GE, a staple brand, sitting here thinking about how the environment and how they can be more friendly to the environment. So that was it. That was like, I looked for jobs in Eco Imagination. I looked for, I sent 20 emails to GE or, letters and phone calls, and then finally figured out there was this thing called sustainability and worked my way into that space.
I love it. That's a good story and quite the visual. Did you have any mentors along the way? Did anyone maybe help kind of nudge you along or open some doors, or is there anyone just you kind of read up on and looked up to, any mentors along the way?
Well, I went back, years later and had to look up who, how did that GE Eco Imagination commercial came to life, because that was, obviously a pretty informative thing for me. So there was a woman named Beth Comstock who worked for GE and sort of is from everything I've understood, is sort of the one responsible for getting Eco Imagination off the ground and coming up with that vision. There's a consultant, Andrew Shapiro, who worked for Green Blue, who also was part of that. So yeah, not any, direct people that I would sort of attribute, some sort of mentorship or involvement. I knew the space and I'd had just all these different touch points, but yeah, those two in particular, I think were really the ones who, through their work illuminated a pathway that, yeah, there is a role in the space and sort of what you've been thinking about and been feeling there's a potential career path there if you can just figure out how to do it.
Absolutely. No, they definitely inspired you, and that's awesome. So tell us about that transition from the corporate side to then breaking out as an entrepreneur, and for the last 12 years having your own sustainability firm. So, because I'm sure there's some listening that one day might want to make that jump, that leap of faith. So can you talk a little bit about that transition and then tell us more about WAP Sustainability?
So when I was I post the Eco Imagination realm, I found myself in an opportunity with M&M Mars to become, their first sustainability manager. And, through that process had the exposure to work with some, really cutting edge consultants. We were working with, Blue Sky out of California. We had Bill McDonough's crew in to help with, green building strategies and everything that Cradle to Cradle can offer. We hired PricewaterhouseCoopers to help set some strategy for Mars. So, here I was young in my career with all this exposure to these, great minds and consultants to tell us, all about how Mars can, solve all of planetary's concerns with sustainability and be the, best corporate social citizen possible. But nobody really wanted to help us sort of do the work that was necessary. So it was things like, oh, you should measure your carbon footprint. And you'd be like, can you help us do that? And they're like, oh, no, that's not really what we do. And then, hey, you should, understand the environmental impact differences between, beef, chicken, and fish for the purposes of, your seafood proteins or your proteins for your pet food products. And we're like, great, who can help us do that work? I don't know. And it just seemed that there was like a lack of sustainability practitioners in the marketplace. And same sort of thing happened. Part of my role with Mars was to help work with Walmart and what Walmart was setting up as, programs for its supply chain. And Mars was a willing participant and saying, hey, well, whatever is required, whatever is necessary, we're happy to help, within reason. And there were a lot of other companies who were, kind of saying, hey, I don't have somebody like this guy that can help us do this. This would be very hard for our company. We don't have anybody that's been trained or have any staff resources. And so, we don't know what to do. And enough of those sort of moments, and then an interest in the data side of sustainability and a lot of the technical components sort of, it was one of those like illuminating moments. You said, hey, I wonder if I could be that person to these companies who need help. And so that was sort of the birth of WAP Sustainability. And been doing that type of work since that kind of aha moment.
Man, that's so cool. And I think, we have to tell ourselves who better to do that than us. And I mean, you had the right training. No one else was there. And what a good transition. So what's keeping you busy today, William? What kind of projects are you working on?
Yeah, in the built environment, there's probably 3 areas that are really captivating a lot of my time and attention. So, one being life cycle assessment. So we're one of the larger providers of life cycle assessments and EPDs for building products in the U.S. and, do a lot of that around the globe. So helping satisfy some of those BPDO credits for manufacturers is a big part of our work. The second set of that is the material health side of the coin. So helping manufacturers, create HPDs and declare labels, but also do all the hard work, where most of the work is actually navigating today's modern supply chains to get that level of information, that granular information you need to make a 100 part per million or 1,000 part per million disclosure. And then the third thing is we've been doing, carbon accounting work for Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies for a long time. Carbon was one of the first, technical skill sets that we developed. We were, part of and had developed competencies and capabilities. And so a lot of the work related to embodied carbon is something that's taken up a lot of our time and something we're really excited about, especially embodied carbon calculations that use EPDs to generate as a data source.
That's super exciting. And I've had several of my podcast guests just talk more about not just operational carbon, but embodied carbon. And so, for those of us that maybe haven't done a life cycle assessment or life cycle analysis, let's start there. What's one of the easiest parts and what's one of the hardest parts of doing those kind of studies on a project?
Yeah. Well, the easy part is, understanding the value of what the LCA brings, which is, companies say, hey, I want to design a greener product, but they don't necessarily have metrics behind that or any sort of framework to determine if the decisions they make going forward in design or in operations and new plants or, new equipment are actually going to have life cycle impact reductions. And so that dialogue and that rhetoric and that exercise of accounting for, life cycle impacts across a product's life cycle are really fun to take part in. They're really informative for manufacturers who, want to know and who are, serious at wanting to, evaluate their product or respond to customers who are interested in low carbon products. The hard part of that is, it takes some time, it takes some resources to do that. And, for the longest bit of time, the use of EPDs were simply just, to collect 20 of them for a lead credit. And so there wasn't a ton of actual use of this data. And that's starting to change with the embodied carbon conversation, but that's the value proposition for manufacturers has always been a little bit of a challenge.
Thank you for that. I think with LEED, we're not quite forced to do the full LCAs. We can definitely get some additional points. For you, it's unlocking more EPDs, HPDs, and other labels for our products. So I like the movement towards the transparency and even more eco-friendly materials. But, what other incentives maybe are there on the LCA side? If anyone listening is working with a client like, maybe we get an extra lead point, but can you give us just a couple more reasons why we should be doing LCAs pretty much on all our projects?
Yeah, despite just the, carrot that lead presents, typically where there's carbon, there's cost. So, for a manufacturer, if they're evaluating their supply chain and they've got, 3 suppliers that provide, similar raw materials, one has a significantly higher carbon footprint. I bet my left shoe that they're also your highest cost supplier, because it costs them more to operate. It costs them more to produce the same, product. Inside the manufacturers, brick walls, processes that are fairly carbon intensive, those are your higher costs to operate, more energy, more natural resources. Something is costing more to drive up that carbon. So there's just good business sense and understanding. It's a different form of product level accounting than just financial accounting or standards costing or something of that nature. So it can be a really useful process at evaluating a product's life cycles and a product life cycle costing for the purposes of cost reduction or saving carbon, lower cost of carbon, anything related to that sort of, bucket.
Yeah, cost of carbon. It's coming at us fast. Thanks, William. I'm just inquisitive because I'm really interested in that. Well, let's talk a little bit about, more about your career. What are some of your proudest achievements? What's on the highlight reel?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Maybe it's some of your credentials, certifications, certain projects you didn't think you could get there. Could be some life milestones, could be entrepreneurship. It's a good question.
I'd say, we're here in our 12th or 13th year doing this, and I've had a really great business partner in this whole endeavor that I was fortunate to find and fortunate to have, found a way to work together for all these years. So, every year we do work together 1 year longer. That's always a proud moment. And then as we've built a team over the years, it's starting to become more and more fun, being able to work on projects and shape markets and, help clients see a lot of value in this whole space. The materials work that we're doing is especially rewarding. Helping a manufacturer sort of navigate its supply chain and for the first time, actually have a full inventory of all the substances that are used in their products and then sort of walk with them through the process of realizing that maybe there's some substances in their product that they don't really want to be there. And, what choices do they have? How do they inform the rest of the business of these things? How do they, deal with their suppliers in this capacity? How do they make the further business case that the, healthy materials sort of ecosystem isn't going away anytime soon? That stuff has exponential benefits. And every time we're involved in one of those projects, I'm super proud of where manufacturers end up and the influencing and supporting role that we had in those projects. So I don't know. I guess on the proudest moment, proud things. Every project we do tends to have some influence or influences our clients in some way. And I think that's awesome. We get out of bed every morning, getting to work on something, really unique and fun and different every day.
That's good stuff, man. Anything else stand out on the proudest achievements?
I think for the most part, there's a lot of people who say we're really great at being solutionists on your really hardest, most complex, shittiest sustainability program. And, I love that. That's what we want to be. That's what we want to be known for as a company. I certainly want to be part of those really hard conversations and really, really hard problems to solve. So, yeah, I think anytime you can kind of, build your own personal brand and company brand into a supporting character like that is a good day.
It's good stuff, man. I like the way you worded that. Well, William, let's pretend we have a crystal ball. You've been in this industry a long time, the green building movement, corporate sustainability. You've got some experience. A lot of people don't. But, where do you think it could be shifted next? What should we be reading up on?
So I think if you go back to in the building product side, or really any product, where we're talking about transparency, for the last 5-7 years, most of the work in a data creation phase, companies have been measuring and reporting, or measuring and disclosing, or identifying and disclosing, but it's all been around the idea of just putting forth information. And if you ever Google or look up any sort of data value chain or data progression, what you always find is that after data creation, the next logical stage is use, where people actually start to use the data to gain insights, to gain knowledge, to create further information. So it's sort of everything that sort of patterns the big data, the same big data conversations. So I think that's where we are as on a transparency journey, is we're sort of maturing out of a stage of data creation, which there's still going to be plenty of that follows, into a stage of data use, where we're actually taking data from things like EPDs and making decisions and developing tools and, furthering areas of science like embodied carbon. I think we're going to see something very similar in the material health side is, an enablement of using HPDs, declare labels, manufacturers' inventories, disclosures on materials and ingredients to actually inform and change the way in which people, procure products and, change the way in which people buy, because we have data to make that decisions. Whereas before it was just kind of a black box, emotionless, emotion-full kind of, how do we make informed decisions? We didn't have the data to do that. So yeah, I think the crystal ball is you're going to see a lot more an evolution of use of transparency data for something. Exactly what, I'm not sure, but could be embodied carbon, could be embodied chemical footprints, could be, who knows?
No, it's great. Well, there's so much data coming at us, but I think your challenge, William, was we got to use it, and we might not yet know exactly what we're going to be using all of it for, but we've got to be gathering it. What is the right data? And, don't go down a rabbit hole, even some high level data that we didn't have before. Let's use it. So do you have any favorite databases? This is the $1 million question in materials. Do you like a UL Spot? Do you like some of the declared databases? Just, if someone listening needed to get some EPDs and get some material information, where do you usually go first?
Yeah, so we do a lot for our clients. We help them be as findable and searchable as possible. So I joke a lot about this is like the age of, internet search engines, like circa, 2000, Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves, Juno, AOL search engine might have been dominant at the time. And there was just so many. And then we had this sort of consolidation down to now the, Google, Yahoo, Bing sort of world. And so I think that's kind of where we're at today is there's lots of database providers around the globe who have very different value propositions and very different go-to markets, very different features in terms of what they've included, in terms of, what's searchable and are they more manufacturer friendly? Are they more A&D friendly? Who are they really trying to captivate as their core audience? All that said, we're big proponents of mindful materials and sort of the industry-led effort that they've put forth. We think they do a bang-up job of engaging architects and designers and engaging and facilitating discussions with manufacturers to sort of, find a solution that works for everybody. The freeness, the ease of the system is a really nice program. The fact that data is reviewed and there's a variety of factors that we think really make that program really nice. So that's connectivity with others. Spot's a great program. We do a lot of EPD work where UL is the program operator. And so we've gotten really familiar with that tool. There's Ecomedes and Building Scout and, some other custom applications. So yeah, that's going to be a really interesting space to sort of watch over the next so many years. And for any manufacturer that has no idea what I'm talking about, the key to all of these is content. It's having EPDs and HPDs and that sort of stuff in order to make yourself searchable and findable on these programs.
Got to be searchable and findable. Yeah, we'll definitely put some links to Mindful Materials and UL Spot. Thanks for running through those. William, a few more questions here. One is, what would you say is your specialty or gift? What are you really good at?
Probably being fairly pragmatic with an approach to solving problems. I mean, I think sort of the ability to, see a problem and see all the inner workings, the value chain of all the concerns and kind of connecting all the dots to create a solution. I mean, I sort of think I'm pretty good at that. And, same thing, I'm connecting people in that same regard. When there's issues, we're probably borderline on the almost too direct side sometimes, but, we feel in some of this space, there's not enough time to sort of pitter patter around, political issues or other things. Let's get to work. Let's solve some stuff. Let's move on.
That's good. No, got to be a realist sometimes and get to the chase. What routines or rituals do you have? Do you have any pro tips, any, habits that you do that help you stay on point?
Yeah, I probably don't have the best work-life balance. So when I disconnect pretty hard. So I'm a big fan of getting away from the phone, getting out in nature, maybe not in the hiking way that most do. I'm a big avid sportsman, do a lot of sports fishing, do a lot of, hunting, waterfowling, things like that. So usually it's hard to be tinkering on your phone when you're doing some of that stuff. But yeah, it sort of forces me to, disconnect. And that's the area of nature that I really, I enjoy that a lot. I cook a lot, so that also takes me away from being connected. But yeah, I think you have to get away and let the mind sort of, take a break and be fresh to come back and, address issues, solve problems. And
yeah, you got to really disconnect there. That's awesome. William, I'm a fan of the bucket list. So there are one or two things maybe on your bucket list, maybe some adventure, some travel, maybe still some business milestones. I don't know. What's on your bucket list?
Yeah. So I'm 2 states away from visiting all 50 in the U.S. So I've got an Alaska and Hawaii trip that I need to make. But that's definitely something I'm looking to do. And then I think it's the Century Club, which is 100 different countries before you die. I think I really enjoy travel. I travel a lot for my job. I visit a lot of our clients and get to explore different areas. But yeah, I would love to finish my chapter in this world as someone who's seen an overabundance of it and well traveled, well experienced, and I feel like that would be a good way to live a life.
Man, that's good stuff. 50 states is on my bucket list. I've only got 38, so I've been to Hawaii, not Alaska yet. So go get some of that good fishing up there in Alaska, man.
It's an amazing country that I think sometimes we take it for granted, but every state is so unique, and it's.
And, we've got some international listeners, and you just have to bear with me because I've only recently started going to Europe in the last 3 years. And, I think over in Europe, there's some U.S. states that are as big as many countries all through Europe. And as you see there is, like you just said, each one's different here in the 50 states.
Yeah.
A lot of different terrain, a lot of different accents, a lot of different food. And it's, there's a lot to do and see here across the U.S. It's pretty cool, man.
For sure.
Just a couple more things. Books. I'm not sure if you like to pick up a book or if you listen like Audible, but, is there a book, even an older one that you'd recommend?
Well, one of my favorite books still in this whole space has been Cradle to Cradle. It is, it captivated me with this idea of, understanding, biological and technical nutrients and this whole life cycle thinking. It was, that always captivated me and has always been one of my, probably overly cliched favorites. And then outside of the, sustainability textbook kind of realm, I'm just finishing up a book about the art of terroir, which is it's basically a UC Davis textbook on the study of soils in Napa Valley and how place is so influential at shaping the taste of wine. One of the kind of unique speaking points to the book is of all the world's soil types that we know about and have kind of cataloged, half are found in the Napa Valley. And so it's an unbelievably interesting place, but I have a soft spot for some good wine. And so, it goes with the cooking thing I referenced earlier. So I like to understand the inner workings of why I like a wine that I like. And this book has been helpful at shaping that for me.
Well, cool. I can tell you love to learn and take you just a little further so you understand it more. That's really neat. Yeah, if you ever get out there, I just recently visited one of my fraternity brothers from Georgia Tech that, who knows where you end up? He ended up being a winemaker for a family-owned vineyard there in Sonoma. And so, yeah, if you head out there, let me know and I'll connect you. And great dude. And he became the guy, the winemaker out there at this one vineyard. So it's really cool.
It's like a retirement strategy. So that would be
they work a lot. They work a lot out there. Well, let's bring it to a close here. William, is there anything you'd wish you'd known a little early in your career, or just any advice for someone jumping into the green building movement right now?
Yeah, I think at this stage in my career, I'm in this point of realizing there's plenty of room to change the rules. I mean, we're still very much in this voluntary, self-governed space of sustainability. I mean, we're not complying with laws. We're not meeting, government regulation. I mean, this is sort of self-governed, consensus-based stuff in a lot of ways. And so this amazing ability to, work within this community to help further progress and help shape, future directions and future strategy. And I don't think that's always communicated to people starting as the role. We're in this really unique space as the sustainability industry that we're 10, 15 years old, maybe, if you sort of say sustainability started like around 2005 to 2008 as a mainstream thing. And so, yeah, I think we talk a lot about the rules and the requirements and, the standards, but we don't always, stop and realize that, not too long ago those were created. And those can be modified to have larger impact and better impact and, more impact given, the amazing speed in which the sustainability space is evolving. So yeah, something along those lines would be my advice.
It's great advice. And yeah, I would agree. Even though the first LEED projects were certified in the year 2000, I think I'd agree with you, William, probably 2005, 2006 to even 2008 as the recession was coming there. That was just when, say, the LEED became really mainstream and full speed ahead, and that really catapulted things. So look at what we've done in just 10 or 12 years and a lot of impact. So good stuff. Hey, I've really enjoyed our talk today. Just want to say thank you for being on the Green Building Matters podcast. And, we'll put some links in the show notes to connect with William on LinkedIn, but he is the director at WAP Sustainability in the Nashville area. William, thanks for being on today.
Appreciate you.
I just want to say thank you to our loyal listeners. We actually are celebrating over 1 year here on the Green Building Matters podcast. Me and the entire team were stoked and just so glad you continue to listen every Wednesday morning to a new interview with a green building professional here in this industry, or just some pro tips that we want to make sure that you are getting straight from us, straight to you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. At gbes.com, our mission is to advance the green building movement through best-in-class education and encouragement. Remember, you can go to gbes.com/podcast for any notes and links that we mentioned in today's episode. And you can actually see the other episodes that have already been recorded with our amazing guests. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Tell your colleagues. And if you really enjoyed it, leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week's episode.